If the actual activists and humans stick to their actual park and ride approach, the risk for Greta Thunberg and other similar activists to have to make an effective effort or compromise is zero, and yet she and all similar activists, at least temporarily, will be heroes, innocents, and/or martyrs, at least in the circles that matter most for them, but this only for the time their theme remains in vogue or recognized, and not yet replaced by another new group of activists or theme, or variation on their theme. Their park and ride approach provokes significant numbers of the other, and seemingly opposite and from their standpoint neglecting and dividing new drill baby drill activists, as well as many that are neutral to, or in cases even also plainly against or at least worried about the drill baby drill approach. This makes that they, including Greta Thunberg, are or will someday in the near future be considered distractors at best, and sellers of false securities at worst. Just as the rebellions of the 60s and 70s, exactly now that they suffer from age and unedited frequency of degenerative diseases that include various forms of cognitive decline and cancers. This park-and-go approach or strategy, theme or behavior of the climate activists will most likely, for most of them, be temporary, similar to all similar groups in the past that have eventually adapted and survived within or exactly through and because the business as usual they over time evolved into. The large group rebellions of the 60s and 70s, that also is called the boomers, which today depends on pensions and healthcare or have already passed away. Back then were the revolting hippies and macrobiotics, and/or vegans and vegetarians preferring or eating exclusively organic and fresh food of the 60s and 70s, which not much later would become the boomers, which made up or depended on the world that spins around business as usual, and in cases even became the leaders of industries, and the politicians, of a world that spins around business as usual, which includes all that is unsustainable, emitting and dividing and consequent making all more vulnerable for conflicts. The actual and possibly already declining group of actual activists could prove to be no match for the coming geopolitics, and that is something they ideally should try to prevent and/or avoid, or at least prepare themselves for. For them to achieve what they need, or will soon need, there would be no better way than an effective carbon agroforest action plan. With such a plan firmly in hands, they probably will be able to peacefully convince and infiltrate and constructively influence and eventually support the newest drill baby drill activists, or rather reactivists. Ironically or possibly rather painfully, for the same causes and reasons revolting hippies and macrobiotics of the past, today are the by Greta Thunberg and other recent or climate activist accused groups of humans, or rather the former activists. This together with all less activist and more neutral humans younger than the former activist of the 60s and 70s themselves. Of one thing we all can be sure of, the above brunt from the youngest as well as the younger than themselves, is the last thing the accused groups of the past activists expected at the time. And if the actual activists or climate activists will not learn from this ironic twist of fate, exactly the same or very similar thing will happen to them. Also exactly when they will depend on the next generation revolutionaries and activists, which they can count on will exist, especially if we humans won't do well, that is if all these groups of humans still will exist by then. What these activists of the past and the actual climate activists have in common, and will make both of them the failures of the past in a not too far future, is that none of them had an action plan ready and in common with the rest of the humans. An effective action plan in common is where this video, series, and channel is all about. It is based on the thousands of years old lifestyles of our real and proven ancestors, and of what is left of them, as well as to modern life adapted lifestyles and communities, that we on occasion call safe havens, like as just an example Paraisodobrasil safe haven or PDB safe haven.